but we are at Nashville Data Nerds, our monthly meeting. The topic for tonight is Intro to Data Visualization with Sekou. He's a senior manager of data engineering at Lovelytics. I guess, is that how you pronounce it, Sekou?
Yeah, Lovelytics.
Okay, I keep wanting to say Lovelytics, but
I know,
that's not
yeah,
it.
It got me too.
Right, I'm sure. So we're excited about that. I'll go a little bit further. So again, I'm the organizer. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find Sekou on LinkedIn as well. I have a new consulting firm that is the sponsor for Data Nerds. Again, my primary interest is in building community and helping people connect. And sometimes that's through recruiting. Sometimes it's relationships for finding clients, or really, again, my main emphasis is building the data and developer community. We also work with Penny University, and there is a Data Nerds channel at Penny University. John Berryman was actually our speaker last month, is the founder of Penny University, as well as the original founder of Data Nerds. And then Alex created a Data Nerds LinkedIn group. And so please reach out to be invited to that group. I will have to say that I have not been terribly active. There are a group of people on there. I will try to make it hopefully a little bit more worth your while to be part of that community. But you can certainly reach out to each other. That's one way that you can find each other as Data Nerds. And then finally, the agenda for this evening, presentation again, Intro to Data Visualization. As last month, I'll be moderating all the questions through chat. If you have a question, then please put it on chat, and I'll find a time that is hopefully appropriate for Sekou to take a breath and answer your question. Post them there, and we'll go from there. Afterwards, after his presentation, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes for some questions. If you haven't had all your questions answered during the time, and then afterwards, those of you that want to stick around, I'm not going to steal your time, but if you want to give a little bit of your time, I'd love to hear your thoughts about kind of what could be next for Data Nerds that will be most helpful for you. All right. And again, so let's see, I'll stop mine. And again, I'm going to I stole John Berryman's thunder last night, or last month, and I told all sorts of things about him that I think he was going to tell about himself. I'm going to let Sekou introduce himself a little bit more than I do, just to say again that he's manager data engineering at Lovelytics. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You can share your screen or whatever you'd like to do. Thanks for being here so much.
Sure, no problem, no problem. Thanks for handing it off. That was great. Let's go ahead and get into it. Can y'all see my screen now? You see Intro to Data Visualization?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. All right. Thanks for the introduction. Again, this is SekouTyler. I'll go more into who I am later in some slides. Very conversational. I'm very laid back. So again, ask questions either via the Zoom, or if you want to stop me and ask as well, either way. But conversation style. We've all been in 100 Zoom meetings. We all have, just talk to one another via computer. So hopefully, talk back and I can, answer questions that you all have. But let's go ahead and get into it. This is Intro to Data Visualization. Quick agenda. I'm going to do an introduction of myself, talk about history of data visualization, storyboarding, data visualization concepts, chart type resources, show you some resources that you can use after this session, and then talk about ethics. One thing when it comes to data visualization, sometimes people can make charts that are funny and do not tell a great story. So I'm going to show some examples and just some stuff to be mindful of, and then keep it kind of loose as well. And then closing, leave time for any questions or any feedback that you all have. So introduction, as was noted earlier, I currently work for Lovelytics. We are a consulting firm based out of DC. I'm in Nashville, but we all can work remote now, so I work remote. We have 1 Tableau visionary and 4 Tableau ambassadors. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, these are voted by the Tableau community as one of the best of their field. So visionary is kind of like the highest honor. There's only like 20 people, I think, elected every year. Tableau ambassadors, there's different aspects of Tableau that you can be voted on. I'm a Tableau ambassador, so that means, the community likes me for some of the stuff that I do. From a Lovelytics perspective, we were voted Tableau's 2021 Rising Star Partner of the Year. So we're an official partner with Tableau. So In essence, if Tableau can't do it or staff it, we can take on the contracts because we are equally as equipped to do the stuff for Tableau. From a career standpoint, I started there as director of data visualization. So I've been on the front end data visualization side probably for like the last 4 or 5 years. But I've been more along the lines of learning more data engineering. So I had the opportunity to come over to kind of focus on the data engineering piece of it. So that's what I do now. So focus primarily on the back end, trying to get better with that and understanding data modeling, and future goals, learning Python and other type of languages. So tinkering with it, but the goal is to understand more data science and stuff as well. So this is a great meetup. I look forward to actually connecting with people after this meeting because I need to pick your brain on stuff. So that is my role. I co-lead the Nashville Power BI user group. We are ramping back up. We have our next session in July. We just posted that today. If you go to the meetup, we are there. I also co-lead the National Tableau user group as well. We just had an in-person meeting last week. Yes, we just had an in-person meeting. So we have another one in July. I think that'll be more of a hybrid. So if you want to come in person or you can watch virtually, you have that option as well. So both links are on the website. If you're interested in either of those tools, let me know. We have our groups there. Content, YouTube, blog, Gmail, all this stuff at SQL, Sekou. Have a TikTok. I don't use it, but if you're on TikTok, follow me, and maybe I can learn how to do some TikTok stuff for you. Also on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, but every social media platform, this is my handle. If you want to get in contact with me, these are your different avenues. Even if you want to contact me via Gmail, it's SekouTyler@gmail.com. All right, certifications. This is just showing all the different things that I've touched. So Tableau, Power BI, Alteryx. So just again, multi-tool, multi-language. Just showing that off, I guess. But at the core, who I am, when it comes to data visualization, my ultimate goal, regardless of the tool, certification, who I talk to, my ultimate goal is I aim to empower people to make better decisions by delightfully displaying data that matters. So I always feel like if you're in the data visualization world, this is the sweet spot. There's so much data, there's so much information out there. It's easy to store this stuff now, and it's easy to generate this information. But when it comes to visualization and understanding your stakeholders, the biggest piece is how do I display the data that matters to my stakeholder, to my end user? I think sometimes people can get lost in that in data visualization. They can see the pretty colors, they can see all the cool stuff that these particular tools can do, but is it solving the question? Is it answering the problem? And I think keeping stuff simple and answering the actual question and displaying stuff that matters is a big skill set. So no matter what tool I'm using, that's my biggest goal, is I always want to display stuff that matters. So another thing people always ask me, because I'm in both like Tableau and Power BI, which is your favorite? I don't really care. I care more about the problem more than I care about the product. At the end of the day, we're visually showing information using the tool or software, but I care about the problem and solving it for the end user. So those are my two models that I live by. So at the core, this is intro to data visualization. So now we're going to focus specifically on data visualization, not necessarily tool specific stuff. So let's talk about history. Data and information visualization is an interdisciplinary field that deals with graphic representation of data and information. But if we look at this as a picture, basically we have information that is being stored. It's in tables, it's in rows and columns. It's something that was captured by somebody. To the right of it, it is visualized visually so that someone can look at this and, there are some quick insights. So for the most part, that's all data visualization is. We're taking some inputs, something that was captured, and we're visualizing it so that your stakeholder or your consumer or whatever you want to call them is looking at this information and can process it much faster. Of note, research at 3M Corporation concluded that the brain processes 60 times faster than text, processes visual 6 times faster than text. So basically, we as human beings, innately, we process visuals much more faster than we do text. So if you give someone, a stakeholder, text tables or just raw information where they got to go and look at insights, trend over time, whatever the case may be, it's going to take them much longer than if we give them a simplistic or just a chart that condenses that down. So when it comes to data visualization, I really think that's a key insight. With also creating your story, you don't want to have too many visuals or overstimulate the brain. You wanted to make sure you are presenting a clear message, as clear as possible, depending on the ask, and that your consumer, your stakeholder, whoever is looking at it, can actually process and understand what is going on. And there's some techniques out there that I can show you later on, but this basically just shows we process visuals much faster. So if we think of data visualization, right, we think of the concept of data is this growing field. Like some of us maybe have just heard about data and just the ability to understand and get into this field maybe within the last 5 years. We all hear that data is the new oil, data is growing rapidly, data is growing at 2x rate or what have you. But realistically, data visualization and capturing data has been around since the beginning of mankind. It's been around forever. And the earliest examples of these, we look at a historical context. This is created by Charles Minard, and this shows the Napoleon-Russian campaign in 1812 through 13. And basically, if we look here, I don't have my zoom on. You see here, this is Tableau graph, which if you look at the historical name of Tableau, could be related to this as one of the earliest visuals of data visualization, right? This is one of your early data visuals, but there wasn't a fancy software program that wrote this. There wasn't a fancy capturing tool that put this into a database. A lot of this stuff was handwritten and was then given to or provided to somebody so they can understand what was going on. So when we think of data visualization, we think of it from a machine side of things, but really data visualization is I'm taking information that's been captured, whether it's by pen, whether it's by brain, whether it's by somewhere, and I am visualizing it onto a blank canvas even, or I'm hand drawing it or what have you. So I like to call it out from historical context because right now the buzzwords in our current society is, data, 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 everything is computational, but really there is, from a historical standpoint, there is a really artistic, very easier, I won't say easier, but an earlier way of capturing this information and putting it into a chart. Another person to look at is, we look at this rose chart. This is created by Florence Nightingale. There's a lot of information on Nightingale. Historically, she was one of the first pioneers. I can't think of her title, but she was a nurse, and she needed to create a visual to tell the story of the causes of mortality in the Army that was happening. So again, right, I have all this documentation that's being captured. I have all these notes, I have all this, but it's not portraying the message that I want to portray. It's not showing it. It's not giving, the insights that I want to give. So how can I do it? I want to create a visual. So this was hand drawn in April 1855. And as you see, this is one of the original data visualizations that told a story using data. Again, hand captured, different ways of capturing it, but it brought to light the story that she's trying to tell. And even from a society standpoint, sociology, W.E.B. Du Bois, if you're not familiar with him, he is a famous sociologist who went to Fisk. And basically one thing he was responsible for and what his main mission was to show the discrepancies between African-Americans and whites, especially in the South. And what he did, he's basically the founder of sociology. He went basically door to door, him and his team, capturing information. And then from there, he handcrafted several different visuals that even now today, some of the tools that we use, they're just not as good as he did by hand. So he used different concepts, capturing different data, but he had different visuals. So this is at the Paris exhibit. If you go out there and look at W. Du Bois, the Paris exhibit, you see different visuals that he has. This is one, it's just a fan chart. But again, it's just showing a comparison as a whole, but it's just doing different things with data visualization in the 1900s that this visual is still, a fantastic looking visual in 2022. So it just shows historical context of data visualization and where it has started and even where it's at now. So another thing when people think of data visualization is I am capturing some type of information and it has to go through this software in order to print out stuff. But in reality, a lot of us consume data visualization every single day. When we're driving, we're looking at insights. We are looking at making decisions based on what we have. The biggest one is the dashboard. If you're looking at your driving, you are going 60 miles per hour. That is a KPI that you're looking at. You're looking at the amount of gas that you have. If you are half a tank, which most of us probably are because gas is really high right now, you know where you're at in range to going up and down and how much money you have and so on and so forth. But all joking aside, we look and consume at data visualization often when we're doing things. When you're looking at your iPhone, you look at your battery and what percentage is it going down and so on and so forth. So it's all around us. And it's just one of those things, like once you notice visualization, you start to see the story that's being told innately by different softwares, different tools, or different platforms. So modern day, as I talked about earlier, I need to zoom this in, but basically this is Domo. If you go to Domo, Data Never Sleeps 9.0, every single year they make an infographic of the amount of data that is generated by these different softwares that are out there. So For instance, we look at Slack, 148 users send a message every single minute of the day, 856 minutes of webinars, Zoom, Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, Google. I mean, it's just gone off the rafters since COVID, because we are now in the digital world. So I bring this up because, right, here's all this data that's being generated. It's becoming much cheaper to store it. But if you want to get into data visualization, like I was saying, the key insight is, because there's so much information being populated, there's so much stuff that's being generated, is how can I tell this story? How can I take these key insights and give it to the appropriate user that wants to see this information? So I love calling out that just the amount of stuff that's there, that there's really a need for people who understand data visualization and can tell a story with the data that's going on. All right, so this is a technique I use called storyboarding. This is a process that I should have used when me and Alex worked together, but I didn't. And I remember a project that made me really leverage this one time. And this is one technique that I learned and that I use going forward. So storyboarding, 6-step process. First part is the problem. At the core, what are we trying to solve? You know, what is it we're looking at? When we get information, we get a request, or if we don't know what we're looking at, are we doing exploratory analysis? Are we explaining what type of analysis are we doing? What are we trying to solve, right? I think that should always be at the forefront of our brain, is what is the problem we're trying to solve? Because from there, you can start thinking about different techniques. What do you have? What don't you have? But if you always keep the problem as number one, then the technologies and stuff and concepts and stuff, you can intertwine. But problems should always be number one. Number two, when it comes to storyboarding, who's your audience? Are you creating something for a operations leader who needs information by the hour? Or are you creating something for an executive level audience who needs to see the top level KPIs, but doesn't necessarily need the detailed information? So understanding your audience can help guide you in the amount of data, the aggregation, who you're talking to, your KPIs, what's good, what's bad, you know, all types of contextual information that you need to give. So understanding your audience is really big. Is it an internal audience? Is it an external audience? Do they have historical context to what you're building? Are they coming in blind with the stuff that you're building? So understanding your audience is really big, doing some research on that. And at the same time as you, who are you to your audience? Are you a junior data analyst who is just starting out, and one mistake of your visual can have someone lose confidence in you? Or are you a senior consultant, or are you a CEO of your own company who has, I won't say a brand, but who has, you know, produced several different things? Or do you have a different title that, you know, people can have a bias towards? So understanding how your audience might receive you as well is really big when you're telling your particular story. And then what's the anticipated action that you want them to do, right? So you create this thing, or you have this, you know, idea, you understand the problem, you created something. What do you want them to do with it? Do you want them to just look at it and print it out? Do you want them to actually interact with it? Like, what's the action that you actually want them to do with it? And then from there, if you notice, all this stuff, we think about this regardless of the tool that we're using. So these are questions that you ask regardless if you're using a Tableau, or Power BI, and Excel, or Python, whatever scripting language it is, even if you're using a PowerPoint. Those top 3 questions you should typically ask before you even care about the tool that you have. Then once you have the tool, right, then you understand, you know, kind of the different things that you can do, what are capabilities and what are, you know, options that you have. But the first 3 questions, I think, are really, really huge questions to ask. And then the tone, success, failure, right? How do we want to call out different success with our KPIs? Are we creating a new report that has 0 historical context, and we're saying you guys have been failing the last year and we caused the whole company to panic? Or do we want to call out failures in a different way? What is a failure? What is success? Has that been defined? You know, what is the tone that we want to give? Do we want to, you know, be, I won't say more gentle, but like, how do we want to articulate what we're calling out? Is this one of those things we're really trying to drive home a point? Or are we trying to say, you know, within the last 6 weeks, we had 3% improvements in this particular area because XYZ was implemented? So understanding your tone is really big when it comes to delivering your message. And then how we'll go into this with different possible types of graphs and charts. So different charts portray a different message. Different charts can be consumed faster than other charts. Biggest piece of advice, if you're using a pie chart, only 2 or 3 slices. So true, false, yes, no, maybe, you know, other things. But if you use a pie chart, typically try and use 2 dimensions. That way it's easy to consume. If you have a pie chart with 5 different slices, it becomes hard to compare to different slices. So Biggest piece of advice when you come to talk to people in data visualization is like, oh, I hate pie charts, but pie charts can be useful if you're using particular dimensions there. Before I move on, any questions at all, Glenn?
Sorry, I'm babbling with my mute on. There was a question from earlier on, but I didn't want to stop you. There's a question about the citation on that 3M figure. We can look at that at the end, or I don't know if you can go back.
I don't know. It's somewhere from Google. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot I'm academic. My bad. I need to cite everything.
No, like really, unfortunately, like for the context here is like one of the things that I'm trying to do is pivot some of the reports that we do to be more visual. And like it or not, proof by authority, just culturally, my cultural observation, like around where I am, goes a long way, as much as I kind of hate it. So it was just a general curiosity, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's somewhere on Google and it got cited. I just didn't put it on here. But yeah, there could be 40 times or 10 times, but the end result is much faster to process visuals than it is text.
Yeah, and that was the context behind it. Just trying to change a little bit of the culture in my workplace and make us a little bit more visual. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. That was the only question though so far.
All right, sweet. All right, so let's talk about data visualization concepts. So the biggest piece when you start to think about data visualization, start with an example in mind, right? Typically, when you understand, we go to our 6-step process, we understand the problem, we understand our audience, our action that we're trying to solve. But now we have a blank canvas. So I have all this information written down. I did the storyboarding, I scribbled it out. But now, like, let's actually start creating a visual. So concepts that you can typically use. This is from my VP, Chantilly Juggernaut. She's the Tableau visionary that I was talking about. There is a YouTube video where she talks about design secrets for a non-designer. It is fantastic. It is my go-to that I still watch to this day if I'm stuck on something. These are all the concepts, particularly from her video, and she does great work. But the biggest one that always helps me is start with an example in mind. Give some examples where you can go to look at this, but this does help to look at an example and think, how do I want to tell this story? Because typically this isn't the first time the story has been told. What is a good way of telling the story? How has the audience received it? What can I do to improve my visualizations? Another big thing is incorporate large bands. So this is a big number in the data visualization world. Typically is for big ASSN numbers, but we call them big aggregated numbers. So if you don't use in profanity, but typically bands, right? What are our KPIs? What are the key insights that we want to call out? So a use of this in this particular PowerPoint that I have, if we go back to this particular number, we see the 60,000 is huge as a band. It sticks out more heavily than some of the other contexts. So using bands is really huge for the information that you want to draw out to your user. That is a key insight. So using that is really big with your story. A simple layout. We can do, really impressive stuff. We can do, really, fancy stuff out there. If you start getting into this world, you see some people who love to kind of create some complex stuff, but at the same time, it's really quite difficult sometimes to recreate it in a consistent basis. So a simple layout really helps you out when it comes to organizing your chart. So a simple layout could look like, actually I have an example on the next slide, but just using a simple layout and then design to a grid. So if you're designing to a grid, your stuff snaps, you have a template, it just looks cleaner, it's much more organized and aligned. So designing to a grid is a really big key that helps look and make your visualizations much cleaner. So if you're looking for an example of mine, some resources you can go to, there's Pinterest. So if you go to Pinterest and type in data visualization, you'll see all types of different pictures and images. If you go to Google, you can Google data visualization. If you go to Figma, Figma, this is a wireframing, prototyping, dashboarding tool. There are examples out there. And then Tableau Public. So Tableau Public has a lot of end users where, if you're not familiar with Tableau Public, it is a gallery. Well, it's Tableau's hosted site to where you can download the software, push it up, and Tableau hosts it as well. All using public information. You can see a lot of good examples out there. They also have a gallery. So if there's something, and they have a search mechanism as well. So if you go out to Tableau Public and search business dashboards, you will see a whole bunch of stuff out there. There's also Twitter, a lot of different hashtags and stuff that you can use to kind of search that. So, a lot of different resources to kind of find those examples in mind. What I'm going to show you is the Figma one. So I got this from the middle. And basically, this is a dashboard I wish I could zoom in. Can you all see that clear? Is that clear enough, kind of?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, cool. So on this Figma, this is an example of, say, a business dashboard. So as I was talking about at the top, you have your bands, you have your big numbers that you're trying to call out. So here are my KPIs that I can quickly see. Then you see the grid style. You kind of have the template of how you want to organize it. You have your trending over time information. You have a table at the bottom. And the top right, you kind of have a pie chart, gives you contextual information. To the left, you have a navigation. So again, it gives you kind of a stylistic guide. You see like the gray background, you see the blue on the left side, gives you some like UX, UI design type stuff. So again, example in mind, you don't have to necessarily use these colors or your color schemes or really the navigation, but looking at this, you can take the things, if you look at enough examples and bring them all together and kind of create your own story. So I think starting with that helps give you, one, inspiration, two, seeing what's some best practices and really, really cool stuff that is out there. And then three, you can make it your own as well. So start with an example, just something that you like, kind of piece it together and kind of make it your own. All right, so if we go to resources, so one resource that I use when I'm trying to tell a story is DataViz catalog. So sometimes if I'm trying to tell a story and I really don't know what chart I want to use, I really don't know if it works for this scenario, this website is a good resource for that. So if we go to datavizcatalog.com, and here it shows you the different type of charts that are available. So if you're using it, if you want to say use a bar chart, this can give you a description of a bar chart, why you use it, what makes better, description, and then functions if you're doing it for comparisons or patterns. And then it gives you the ability to look at similar charts as well. So say you don't want to just use 10 different bar charts on your visualization, maybe you want to use different ones. This gives you different ways to kind of break that up and use something different. And then also as well, if you come in here, if you go to say search by function, this also gives you the type of function. So if you're doing, say, comparison, if I click on comparison, and it will give you this great ad. This will give you the different types of charts that you can do for comparison. So if you're looking at a scatter chart, if you're doing a bullet chart, histogram, just gives you different type of visuals that you can use. This one is with an axis, and then the other one's without an axis. So if you're gonna do a donut, pie chart, so on and so forth, you can do that. And then same thing, the biggest one, right? If we're doing something business, typically our end users want to look at data over time. So this is a really cool one to look at. How can we show data over time? Typically, you're gonna have your area or line chart, histogram, heat map, so on and so forth. And then you do calendars and stuff. But this is a really good resource for you to kind of look at, and you have a starting point, but what visuals do I want to use to tell my story? So if you start with a template in mind, seeing something, and then if you come here and look at the different visuals that are available, between the two different resources, you can come up with a good story and craft that story and craft that data visualization for your end user.
Sekou, I wanted to mention that I am, or you are going to share your slides at the end,
Yeah.
so they don't have to be writing this down feverishly. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So all the links and everything will be in here. So that is one of my great resources that I love using, DataViz catalog. Definitely check that out. All right, so let's go into the actual ethics. So this is one of my favorite slides. I actually love playing this game when I'm watching the news, where I see something and I just look at like, oh my God, this is an awful visual. And so I didn't take this visual, but I saw this online as I was putting this stuff together, and some of these were really funny. So if we look at this, right, we're looking at it and we see that the numbers do not reflect at all the actual data itself. So in the middle, our highest corona cases in Florida, 6/19, June 19 were 4,000, but somehow it is the lowest bar in the bar chart. So, this is one way to where you can create a visual, but if you're not providing the proper context, your story is off. So if I'm looking at this and I'm not, again, digesting, right, we're naturally looking at the picture. We think, 6/17 is our highest day. And in the context, we think of 6/19, as the lowest day, but in reality, something's off somewhere. But this goes on national TV, clearly a screenshot, it's on the internet, so it's gonna live forever. So if we look at this one, we look at the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox. So this is quote unquote wrong, which it is wrong, because if you look at where your axis is starting, on the left versus right, we can see we're kind of manipulating the story. So you see that on the left is 0.400, and it looks like the range is 450, 550, and it looks like the New York Yankees are that much significantly better than the Boston Red Sox from a winning percentage. When in reality, this story can be shifted and manipulated just by updating the axis. So to the right of it, if we really start at 0 and we have our actual axis is saying just hundreds, the story looks a little bit better. Like the Yankees aren't that much just better than the Boston. They're great, don't get me wrong, but by manipulating the axis and stuff, you can see how the story just looks so much different. So these are small things to kind of look out for. And when you're creating your story, is to just be mindful of your axis and how are you telling your story? Like, are you doing inherent manipulation to try and convey a KPI in a manner that you want it to be? And it happens all the time. And it's just something to be mindful of. This is another one. This is kind of blurry, but basically this is showing over 100 million now receiving federal welfare. If you look from left to right, we see Q1 2009, we see 2011 Q2. We look at this naturally, we're like, oh my God, this has really gone up. This is going crazy. But again, if you look at the starting point of the axis, the starting point of the axis is 94 million. The end point is 108 million. When in reality, that's only 104 or 14. Yeah, it's like $14 million in 2 years. In reality, it's not really that bad. But again, because of the adjustment of the axis, we are telling that story to bring the narrative that we want. So again, these are different techniques, different tactics that people use to, tell a story that they want to show, depending on whatever it is that they're trying to show. And then this is my absolute favorite one. We have a pie chart. The pie chart does not equal 100, but somehow we have a pie chart that is at 70%, 60%, 63%. I have no idea how they got their numbers, but this is on a Fox News channel. Next election or any type of election stuff, oh my God, the visuals are fantastic. It's just amazing type of stories that they come up with and the different insights and stuff when it comes to visualization. So again, something to call out, something to look out. One, they're doing a 3D pie chart. It's awful to begin with. It's not colorblind friendly. It's just a really bad pie chart just all around. But again, this goes back into the ethics, right? This doesn't equal 100%. It's just not a really good chart, but somehow we made it on there. So things to look out for when you're creating visuals, understanding like what story you're telling, and don't manipulate the story. Try and let the data speak for itself and not to put too much into it and too much bias or all that, because it will come back. Someone will catch it. Someone will see, the different types of tricks and stuff that you're doing. And one bad visual can lose your credibility. Like I was saying earlier, what is your audience? Who do they think of you? If they catch you manipulating, your trust is out the door. So just definitely highly recommend, just doing it the right way. So ultimately at the end goal, when it comes to data, we have our raw data is all jumbled up. We have it sorted. Then we have it arranged, and then we have it presented visually. So always our end goal is we have all this information, however it's been collected, however it's stored. It's just raw. We kind of have it sorted. We understand what's going on, and we have it arranged. It kind of looks good. But the end goal is how can we present this visually, clear, clean, and that our audience understands what is going on with our visualization. So with that, are there any questions?
So are there questions? There was one comment Peter mentioned with the pie chart, also interesting if you're blue-green colorblind. Could be even more difficult, but yeah. Certainly there's some questions from the audience. What do you have for Sekou?
Hey, Sekou, it's Mario.
Hey.
I appreciate all the resources that you gave, man. It's really helpful. I'm looking to transition into being a data analyst. Is there anything else that you would give to somebody like me who is interested in these type of things? Any tips, like when you first start building these data visualizations?
Yeah, so I would say, one, find a community if that's what it is that you want to do. So there's data visualization communities out there. I mentioned Nashville and Tableau resources here, but they're all around. There's also online challenges as well. I can send that out. I guess I can type that out if I can think of it. But there's a lot of different. The biggest one will be Makeover Monday, and then Workout Wednesday. Those are two different online challenges, and what they do is they provide already pre-aggregated data sets for you to just connect to. You don't have to actually scrape and find the data. And then from there, they give you a challenge to create. So if you're using whatever tool it is, Let's say hypothetically, you have a data set on sports information. Within sports information, they'd be like, we want you to call out these 4 KPIs using this chart and using this technique. So within that challenge, you can see with the Makeover Monday, you can see the submissions and you can see people who have been doing this challenge. So you get inspiration that way. And also by using the challenge as well, you can get critique and feedback if you ask for it. So I think that's one online initiative that's out there. Also at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, Tableau Public, if you go look out there, you can start either recreating or creating stuff yourself. And I always equate anybody that wants to get into any skill set, regardless of the data visualization, data engineering, whatever, I equate to weightlifting, right? The more reps you have, the more you do it, the stronger and the better you're going to be. So at some point, you just got to start. And just start, just really just start applying it, understanding it, and understanding the concepts, and I think you'll get there.
A couple of questions that come up. You said Makeover Monday, and was it Workout Wednesday?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. And I think it's Makeover Monday. So yeah, Makeover Monday. These are the visuals. So I think there's a blog. And yeah, so if you go to participate data sets, you'll see the different data sets that are available. So you come in here, you just download it, and then Viz Review data. This is one as well. Let's see what else is there. Workout Wednesday. Yep, so Workout Wednesday, there's a Tableau and Power BI challenges, but every single Wednesday, there is something that you can recreate. So let's say an example. Let's see if I just picked this one. So this one is, can you switch between KPIs? Here's just the basic context. Here's a visual that was created. And then the challenge, here are the requirements. So it gives you the different requirements for you to start working on. And then, it gives you the data set. So, enable this, here's how you do it, here's how you create it, so on and so forth. And then you publish it out, and it shows you how to share it as well. And then they typically create a posted solution, I don't know, I think Friday or Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, sometimes. Then that way you can watch the example as well. And then I think there's one more. Let me see what else. Sports Viz Sunday. Did I got a website? Yes. So Sports Viz Sunday, same concept. There's a monthly challenge here to where you can click on, and yeah, you view the data. And I think it's the same concept. There's, something you can download and they tell you how to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of different online challenges out there for you to kind of just get reps and see what people are doing.
Cool. Other questions?
Hey, Sekou, Alice, great talk. Quick question for you on dashboards. Yep. Do you have any thoughts on kind of the perfect number of slices? Because I found myself making lots of dashboards where I put too many slices on there, and I think I'm letting people slice however they want and being useful, but it's actually just overwhelming them.
Yeah. So it depends, right? I think there is a sweet spot. Definitely, I think the higher ones, if you need to do anything from a date comparison, having a date slider is valuable in there. And then it just depends on the dimensions that you're looking at. So do I need to slice by department? Do I need to slice by, I don't know, geographic area, state, city? It just depends on what you're showing in a use case. But I would say if you have too many, I would talk to your stakeholders and potentially see what you can remove, or just be like, hey, I removed these 4 slicers because I deemed them as not important. Is that the case? And then you can get feedback that way to see what you can reduce. So kind of take an iterative approach, like I was saying with the problem solving. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Do these slicers help solve that problem, or is it just additional context that's kind of muddy in the waters? So if you can, when you're creating a dashboard, if you can limit some of that stuff, and then they can ask, oh, it'd be nice if we can add it, then you can add it in the future. But kind of, I would say, limit it first and then add on as much as possible.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There was another question that came up and was answered, but you've mentioned KPIs several times, and not everybody knew what a KPI was.
Sorry, key performance indicators. So these are your, typically they're defined by somebody, but these are the important metrics that somebody deems valuable. So a key performance indicator could be if I work for the Nashville Sounds, how many home runs did I have yesterday or last month or what have you? That's an important metric to me. Or how many stolen bases, how many hit by pitch. I don't know, I'm just making up stuff. But these are just, somebody has defined these metrics as really valuable. So you want to call out these things because they're valuable to the business. You don't want to call out stuff that's not necessarily valuable. You want to call out stuff that's important to the business.
Thanks.
When you first said it, you were on the vehicle dashboard, and I was thinking kilometers.
Oh yeah. Oh, not sure. Yeah, so if we're in this example, I think a key performance indicator would be my fuel, right? What's my fuel intake? That's really important to me. What is my speed? Because I don't want to catch a ticket. Like, this is really important. The other ones I think is contextual. Like, we don't necessarily look all the time. Maybe our miles that we have, I think that's really important because you're looking at the life of your car. So those could be 3 examples of my key performance, my key things that are valuable to me. But again, it's subjective. It could be important to somebody else.
I would say going 80 kilometers an hour with your doors open is also probably a problem for you, according to these indicators.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about storyboarding.
Sure.
And in your experience, in any context, has that been a very formal process, or have you used tools for doing that, or is it just more or less a rubric that you tend to follow?
Typically, I started with just a piece of paper. So I'm answering this stuff, I get it, and then I'm kind of scribbling out, where I think my template and stuff should be once I've looked at, got inspiration from somewhere. But as I've gotten a little bit better, I'm trying to use different tools for, we call it wireframing, for instance. But I answer these problems either on paper or in an Excel document somehow. But the top 3, when I say problem, who, what, those questions I'm answering somewhere. And then from there, I start to kind of the wireframing process. I'm trying to get better with Figma. I'm trying to get better with PowerPoint, and whatever. It just depends on what software that you have available for you. But like I said, you can use a piece of paper as well and kind of scribble it down yourself. But I think having that in mind, and another thing as well that I've learned also is when it comes to it, if you can create a wireframe with just made up data, or just showing the visuals and give it to your client or your stakeholder, that can speed up the development process as well, because you're not necessarily waiting on the data to be perfect or what have you. You just feel like, hey, visually, this is what we visually think we're trying to tell. Here at the top part, here are our 4 key performance indicators. Here's the bar chart. We're trying to place this here. This is where we're here. We think you're trying to solve this. Here's the visuals we're thinking about going to, and then you pass it on to your audience to see if this is in line, versus realistically creating an entire dashboard that could take 2, 4, 6 weeks, and it doesn't hit the mark at all. So sometimes wireframing and template out can speed up that process.
Yeah, and so wireframing, if I understand, is just sort of the design layout, the elements that are in there, and you pass fake data back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
Almost
even
kind of proof of concept for the dashboard, right?
Yep, proof of concept, and there's tools out there to where you can place actually just images. Like, even if you're using a PowerPoint, you can just snag a bar chart and just place it there, and you're like, your bar chart will be here. Make some fake numbers here, and you're visually trying to tell that story of the problem that you're trying to solve without some of the underlying, waiting on semantics and data and modeling and stuff that's there. So it kind of helps speed up that front end process, and then also it kind of calls out the gaps that there could potentially have, because if they want to show a key performance indicator but it's not being captured, how are we going to show it on a dashboard?
What other questions do you have?
What visualization are you most proud of?
There you go.
The one that got me my job.
There you go. That works.
Yeah, let me show you this one. I think I got it somewhere. It's my Kobe Bryant one. So he's my favorite player, and I created a visual. I got a lot, but Let me not be superficial with my job, but this is the one that kind of broke and got me in the Tableau community and everything. So I think this one always has a special place in my heart. But this is my Kobe Bryant one.
The colors there, all right?
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. So this is my Kobe Bryant one. I'm proud of this one honestly because I scraped NBA data myself. So I wrote a Python script, pulled it in, modeled it, got it cleaned up, and then I was able to use the design video that I talked about earlier to kind of wireframe it and get into a format that kind of pops out. So I was really happy with this one. This was a personal project. So I think this one is probably my proudest. And then one is just, again, it's Kobe. This was before he passed away too. So it's just one that I just really personal project. And it just, I don't know, a lot of people liked it. So it was cool. On top of just the process of learning it.
I do, before we lose anybody, I want to make sure we've already had some chats saying, thank you so much for a great presentation. So let's take just a second to thank Sekou for being here with us. I'm not cutting off questions, but I want to make sure we at least say thank you. So, all right. So are there any other questions? It got quiet for a minute, but then we had another. Anybody else?
I do have one.
Okay.
Thanks as well. This is it's really helpful. It's easy to take it in and appreciate it. So have you, I don't know if you have given these options, but have you seen people react well to the option of interactability in what you're handing off, so that so that they can, whether it's as new information comes in, they can or change dials around and see different metrics? Or does that seem like, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you tell us what is important and just show us, tell us? Or do people appreciate more interactivity in it?
So I've seen both. I've seen both to where, right. So now I'm in a consultant role. So you have some people that we work with who know what they want, they just don't know how to get there. So they know these metrics are important to them. They know they want to display it. Right now, they're currently showing it in Excel, or they're creating PowerPoints that are connected to macros and updated. It's just, really just outdated process. And they know where they want to get to and automate some of the stuff. So they come to us and then we help them there. The other end, we also have clients who are like, hey, you're the expert in this field. You're supposed to know this. So tell me what's important. And then from there is a conversation, right? You can look at your data and you can look at the insights and you can kind of be like, okay, I think this is important. This will be important to my experience. But at the same time, like, I don't work where you work at. I'm not day in and day out. So you kind of, communication is really big there to make sure you're hitting the mark, to make sure you're explaining and articulating information. And it's all industries. I've had experience with healthcare, had it with manufacturing, operations, sports. I've seen both sides of that coin, to where they know what they want, and then some who are like, okay, I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I kind of need help there. And so what's your experience on blank? And they kind of look for some guidance. So it just depends. Sometimes you got to walk them.
No, that's a good approach. I appreciate it.
But I definitely think confidence is key, right? If you can express and communicate what you're saying with confidence, then they can take it in. And at the same time, if you express it and be like, hey, this is my experience, is relatively limited, or, I know this somehow, but if you can, just communicate that information, I think typically you can have a better experience.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds like we're winding down a little bit. One last chance. Questions? All right, again, thanks so much, Sekou, for being with us and for sharing from your expertise, which is great. I see some claps coming on, but yeah, and perhaps we'll have you back again, but thanks for the intro, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. I will, as I said earlier, be able to send out your slides. I'll also send out the video for the whole session, and so you'll be able to see some of the details there. All right. Thanks again for being with us tonight. For everybody, I will, if anybody, I don't want to hold you over time, but if anybody wants to talk for a few minutes longer, either amongst yourselves, or I have a couple of questions for you, feel free, I can't speak tonight, to stick with us a little bit just to get some input. So, but we'll kind of set the group free. Let me say one more thing. We are meeting, and I about failed to do this. in July. July 6th will be our next meeting. And it will be, as far as I know, we're going to try to do it in person. And I hope that's a good thing for everybody. We've had an offer from CGI that has an office on Carruthers in just south of Cool Springs. And that's one thing I want to hear from you guys, how many people we're going to cut out if we meet in Franklin. But so this is in Franklin, in the Cool Springs area, just across from the Nissan building, if you know that. I'll send all the information. I do want to let you know, though, in addition to being face-to-face, we will continue to have the Zoom presence. I don't want anybody to miss because they can't make it. So in July, July 6th will be our next meeting. It will be at CGI. We'll see how that goes. We have space. I'm looking for, hopefully we'll have some food and beverages as well, but I'll let you know the details as we get closer.